I love critiquing things, and influencers and the products that they push are by no means immune to this. So today I'm going to be sharing with you a handful of things that influencers are notorious for promoting, notorious for pushing, and I'll also be sharing with you why I will never buy them. Because here's the thing, influencers have one job, okay? And it's to sell you stuff. And their influence is honestly stronger than ever, especially in this world where social media has very much turned into an e-commerce platform. And one thing, just before we dive in, if you enjoy any of the things that I mentioned in this video, that is totally fine. This is not an attack on you. This isn't an attack on anybody other than this extreme push to overconsume. That being said, though, I do think there are a handful of things on this list that are completely unnecessary for everybody, but that's just my take. We'll get into it. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion, blah, blah, blah. You get the point. The first thing that influencers could truly never convince me to buy are Stanley cups. Now, just to start, I think one thing that is really interesting to know about Stanley is that they are not a new brand. Like, Stanley has been around for over 100 years, and I would say for a majority of that time, their target demographic was people who were working in trades, people who had very hands-on jobs that needed a reliable and a durable water bottle. But this brings up my biggest issue with Stanley, and frankly with the people who are promoting it so often online, is that it's very much turned from this everyday essential item to collectibles. And I think it starts to beg the question of, when does collecting turn into overconsuming? So with that said, I will never buy into the Stanley craze. Again, like, if you own a Stanley and you love it, I think that's fantastic. If you own like 50 Stanleys, I think that's kind of where the problem lies. And here's the exact reasons why I will never buy it. First things first, I know hydration is important, of course, but the Stanley is just too big for me. I don't like how bulky it is. It just feels like you're literally carrying around another bag. Like, it just is way too big. And the second reason is because I already have a really great water bottle, okay? This is my emotional support water bottle. This is a Hydro Flask, and I've had it for 4 years at this point. And it's certainly beat up. Like, I don't know if you can see the bottom, but it's definitely like misshapen, and some of the paint, I'm assuming, or the color is coming off, but I don't really care. It gets the job done. It hydrates me. It keeps my water cold, and I love it. But despite my appreciation for the water bottle I have, and honestly, Hydro Flask, it sounds like I'm sponsoring them. I'm definitely not. You won't catch me collecting Hydro Flasks or Stanleys or any other type of water bottle, because realistically, you probably only need one, maybe two. Maybe you need one for work, maybe you need one for home. I would say 2 is probably the max that anybody actually needs. So just to wrap Stanley up and never talk about it again, I think that the issue I have with Stanley is more about the culture of consumption that influencers have created with it, and less about the actual product or brand itself. The next item that influencers could never convince me to buy are the Clean Skin Club disposable face towels. Now, if you're unfamiliar with these, they are disposable and compostable. I feel like I'm saying that wrong. Compostable? You get what I'm saying, which I will address that in a second. Face towels that are essentially marked as an alternative to the bacteria-ridden face towels that a majority of the people actually use. First things first, let me say that I deeply empathize with anybody who has acne. I suffered from horrible cystic acne for a majority of my life, alongside just regular acne as well. And I dealt with it up until actually about a year ago, when I switched birth controls, and that did something to my hormones, and now my skin is relatively clear. Is it perfect? No, but is it as nearly as bad as it was a year, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years ago. Not at all. But here's why I would never personally buy them. They are wasteful, plain and simple. This is one of those products that I just don't feel like anybody genuinely needs. I know that they say they're compostable, which obviously is better than being not compostable, but waste is waste at the end of the day. And it's just creating more trash, which we do not need. Now, I was watching some TikToks on this product and I came across a dermatologist who pretty much had the same sentiment that I do, which is that they're wasteful. And what he recommended is if you need something like this that performs similarly, that, is a one-time use type of thing, you should look into reusable baby wipes. Genius. They're gentle, they are effective. You can get a pack of them, use them one time, put them in your laundry, call it a day, and you don't have to consistently buy the new product, and you also aren't contributing to waste. At the end of the day, if you are somebody struggling with acne, and if it's accessible to you, I recommend going to a dermatologist. And if you aren't able to access a dermatologist for some reason, you can also just go to your regular doctor. I don't know exactly what they would prescribe. I don't know if they would just refer you to a derm, but my doctor, for the most part, has given me all the prescriptions I've needed to help clear my acne. That's just my recommendation. If it's accessible to you, if it's available to you, I do recommend going to a doctor. The next thing that influencers could never convince me to buy are any type of vitamins or supplements. So for me, I think that this is also fairly similar to my last point, where it's like when you're dealing with something that is debilitating, like in the last point it was acne, and in this point it could be something like bloating or gut issues or anything like that. Like when you are dealing with something that is so tough and hard to deal with, like I completely understand why you would look towards any type of avenue that's available to you. Now, the two main offenders here that I see the most often online are Bloom, of course, and then Lemmy Gummies, I believe they're called. And it truly feels like these companies are everywhere. Like they have definitely infiltrated the influencer market way more than they truly should. When it comes to your health, I do think it is important to prioritize professional opinions over influencer recommendations. So again, if you are considering supplements, I would recommend going to your doctor if that's available to you. I know health insurance is so messed up, and I know not all of us have access to quality care. So like, I just want to be cognizant of that. I would just recommend seeking out professional opinions if possible, because they're going to be able to guide you and figure out what's actually best suited for your individual needs. And honestly, what I see online from these brands and brands like Bloom and Lemmy Gummies is they are really not all they're cracked up to be. A lot of people report that they just simply don't work, or that they don't perform the way that they were expecting them to. Now, I'm somebody who has a background in brand strategy. I've worked with fashion, retail, beauty, wellness brands. Like I've done it all. I couldn't help but think about the long-term implications that these brands might have given their hard ties to influencers. I think that when you use influencers to overpromise with a certain product and then that product doesn't actually deliver what it promised, it's ultimately going to damage consumers' trust in the brand. And at the end of the day, no amount of like cutesy marketing or influencer endorsements can replace actually effective products. The next thing that I will never ever buy, no matter how much influencers recommend it, is anything from Shein or Temu. Now, if you've been here for a while, this is not news to you, okay? You know my true hatred for these brands. And honestly, I just can't believe that people are still actively promoting them. Like, it blows my mind. I think that when it comes to influencers promoting these brands, they either just don't really understand what's wrong with them, like what's actually unethical about these brands, maybe they just don't have the same moral compass as people who don't support Shein or Temu or brands like that. So what makes me the most angry though is when I see a ton of people online with boxes and bags of Shein and Temu and look what I got, or like my Temu haul or whatever, and they're like, I got this for $50-$60 or something like that. Like, look at all this stuff I got. And I'm like, you paid that at the expense of who? And at the expense of what? I recently made a video about Temu where I dove a little bit more into their business practices, everything from labor exploitation to data privacy concerns. So I will link that above here if you're interested. And what I learned from Temu specifically is that their marketing budget is absolutely massive. So I think it's pretty safe to assume that a decent chunk of that is going towards influencers. And that is why they are able to saturate the market so effectively, because of their ginormous budget. So at the end of the day, no matter how much influencers rave about Shein or Temu or any other brand within that ecosphere, I'm not buying it. There are so many more ethical choices out there that you can make when it comes to clothing and home goods. In every category that these companies sell online, you can find, I would say, almost all of those things in secondhand stores. It just takes a little bit of effort and a little bit of time. And I personally would rather support those things than ever support, Shein, Temu, etc. Now, the last thing that I will never ever buy, no matter how much influencers promote it, are any type of influencer brand. I did a video on this recently, all about the rise and fall of influencer brands. It was kind of triggered by the whole Matilda Jerf controversy that's happening right now. Again, if you're interested, I will link it above here. But the problem that I have with influencer brands is that they're just such an obvious cash grab, and there's never, or I should say, not never, I don't know every single influencer brand, of course, but there's a majority of the time not much thought put behind these brands and products. And there's never a purposeful mission behind the brand other than buy this thing to look like me. And honestly, most of these brands, I would say pretty much all of these brands, are things that we really just don't need. They are not innovative. They're truly not solving any problems. Instead, they are just adding more and more stuff to an already oversaturated market. So I don't think we need any more brands run by influencers. I don't think we need any more clothing brands, makeup brands, skincare brands, whatever. What we do need are influencers to start creating brands or businesses that actually have a positive impact, okay? Like, I want to see influencers use their actual influence and use the quote unquote power that they have in the audience that they've built to encourage the circular economy and encourage more mindful consumption. So for me, I would love to see an influencer-owned thrift store, consignment shop, a zero waste refill store. I would love to see influencers hosting clothing swaps in their city. Like, I would be the first to support that if the influencer was actually walking the walk. Now, if there are any influencers that are actually doing these types of things right now, please drop them in the comments down below. I would love to check them out and support them depending on where they're located or if they have online options or whatever the case may be. I would love to check them out. But for now, I just can't get behind people who just want more and more and more when it comes to money and when it comes to just producing more stuff that the world truly doesn't need. It feels redundant. It is wasteful, and frankly, it's just something that I don't want to support. All right, you guys, it felt like this video was a little bit of a negative Nancy, but that's okay. We talk about it all here on YouTube. It's all good. I would love to hear what's one thing that you personally would never buy, no matter how much an influencer pushes it on you. Could be anything. Leave a comment down below. I would love to hear your thoughts. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye.